How is everybody doing today? This is L.A.Kendrick with another tale from the vault of Would You Dare? All right, y'all know how we do it. Everything's supernatural, extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, one shot, one take only. All right, make sure we keep the authentication. Here's the logo. Here's the latest book, The Foes of God. You guys grab a copy of this, I'm telling you. You will not be disappointed in the material that's in it. Covers everything that we talk about and on a grander scale, with some fact and fiction involved as well. So I have another one as far as, well, no, this is gonna be categorized as supernatural. All right, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 500 and see what that does. And with that being said, obviously the thing went out, so let me turn it around and get to the meat and potatoes of why we are here. All right? What we're going to talk about today is what inspires some of these movie writers to do what they do and the stories that they present. And what I'm going to do is, before I go into the particular director or writer that came up with this concept for his movie, I'm going to go through some of the things that he said inspired him. All right? Forgive the sweat, just got through doing a massive workout, making sure the heart is working, and keep myself together. All right? You guys do the same. But the party don't start till you walk in, and now that you're here, let's begin. All right? This happened in the 80s, right? So this is how it got started. Just bear with me, walk with me through this. Southeast Asian refugees, those are Oriental Asians, in America died for unknown reasons in their sleep during the 1980s. The mysterious deaths were usually among young men in their 20s and 30s from Hmong ethnic group, and affected a large enough segment of this population to alarm health public experts. The people suffering from this puzzling ailment were typically refugees from Laos, a small landlocked country in Southeast Asia. The Hmong minority group has been persecuted in Laos, for they were recruited by the CIA to fight North Vietnamese soldiers during the Vietnam War. More than 30,000 Hmong soldiers helped the U.S. fight communism in the northern highlands where they lived, but died at a rate 10 times higher than their American counterparts. In 1975, the Vietnam War ended and Laos became a communist country. The new leadership there viewed the Hmong as traitors for their work with the United States. Many survivors from the war fled their homes after the war to become refugees in Thailand or the U.S. It was a forced migration under the most trying of conditions, says Dr. Katharia U.M., associate professor at Berkeley. It's a very long and very treacherous journey. The group's trouble did not end with the resettlement, as they often remain traumatized by their experiences back home. These are people who have endured a great deal and subjected to a great deal, says. Hmong refugees in the U.S. suffer from high rates of poverty, and soon a mysterious ailment seemed to befall them. I'm skipping down. They had mysterious fatality, Mandalay striking Hmong men, night deaths of Asian men unexplained, ran in the L.A. Times throughout the late 70s and early 80s, any of which could have sparked this guy's imagination. One article in 1981 describes the scene of a Laotian refugee who relocated in the U.S. from a refugee camp in Thailand with his family, but shortly after settling in the U.S., the 47-year-old Yong Leong Thao died in his sleep with his wife beside him in tears. He was the fourth Hmong man to die while sleeping in 9 months, and the 13th nocturnal Hmong death since 1978, according to the article. Investigators could find no medical explanation for the deaths, but many community members attributed the deaths to chemical nerve gas agents that the refugee soldiers of the Vietnam War would have been exposed to. That theory by doctors was not supported, however. Nerve gas doesn't act this way. There is no evidence, said Dr. Larry V. Lewman, the medical examiner in the L.A. Times article. Secondly, if it was nerve gas, why does it only affect males and why only during the night? Good point. Other Hmong men believe they were being punished by the spirits of their ancestors for leaving their homeland. I've heard that before. Their anxiety centered around the ability to do right by your ancestral spirits because you're not there, or because you don't have the right things to perform ritual rites, says Dr. Ohm. I do think that for many of the Hmong of that generation, the traditional explanation remains silent, if not more salient, if not more salient than explanations related to cardiovascular problems. The fatal ailment, later classified as sudden, unexplained nocturnal death syndrome, SUNS, has been investigated by the Center for Disease Control at length. However, the wave of SUNS death among Southeast Asians, particularly the Hmong group, is still unexplained. Dr. Ohm suggests that years of stress that the Hmong endured could be a factor in the disease, which was a reflection of what kind of stressors that come along with being forcibly removed from a familiar world to a completely alien and sometimes even hostile content, she adds. Sounds like some stuff here. The threat of this mysterious death sentence given to Hmong refugees may be even more frightening than the fictional murderer that it inspired, right? So let me go back to the top. This gentleman that I'm talking about, his name is Wes Craven, the guy that did the incredible story Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is one of the parts that he did. This article is from the History Channel. In 1984, Wes Craven introduced the world to one of the most iconic horror films of all time, A Nightmare on Elm Street. His creation, Freddy Krueger, as a demon who kills teens in their sleep, was heinous, terrifying, and literally ripped from the headlines. Craven found inspiration from the landmark horror film through an article that was published by the L.A. Times, and this is it. He recounted this is how he was inspired by it. Let me see if I covered this part. He recounted the story of a refugee child from the Cambodian genocide who was terrified to sleep for fear that he would be attacked in his dreams and never wake up. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought the crisis was over. Then they heard screams in the middle of the night. Craven told Vulture by the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of a nightmare. Now that's crazy, okay? Now let me quote some things that Wes said that inspired him as well. Let me see here. Wes Craven said, according to the creator, he drew inspiration from several real-life sources as a serial child murderer who lived near where he grew up, and a dream he had of a man with a burnt face. However, it's possible that some elements of the hat figure may have influenced the depiction of Freddy Krueger in popular culture. Because they say this is another thing that I'm throwing in there. They say the shadow people have a tendency to have hats, different outfits, costumes, or something like that, and they just stand around and watch you. As I said in one of my live speaking engagements or storytelling events that I did, I was explaining to people, you see that thing out of the side of your eye sometime, you don't know what that is exactly, but you're curious as to what it is. They say sometimes it comes into the room, sits at the foot of your bed, or stands at the foot of your bed, and it paralyzes you to the point where you can't move and you can't think and you can't yell out, you can't do anything. And it'll rest on your chest. And sometimes people say it feels like death has walked in the room or they're dying, going to die, right? So, now I don't know which article this is, but it's somebody, I just picked it up because it sounded like they were talking about Wes Craven. I saw a tall human-like figure, and the figure looked like that of a man. The man had no distinguishable features whatsoever. I could see no eyes, no nose or mouth, only blackness. He looked like a shadow, only darker, much darker. He had a very wide-brimmed hat and a long trench coat that flowed as he moved. And they say brown, but they're putting it with Wes Craven, and I'm kind of trying to figure out how that ties in. All right? Regardless of when or what the situation is, the Hat Man appears in, the entity seems to be drawn to causes or predictions of misfortune, bad luck, ill health, or even death. Even strangers that the Hat Man has been reported to make himself visible to multiple generations of the same family or to a witness of family and friends. See, there we go. I'm telling you, There's some weird stuff going on, man. And I find that very, very fascinating that a lot of these individuals, these writers, these producers, these, like I say, it's about the imaginations where we get these great, great stories and we go to the movies and we flock, spend a lot of money on merchandise, trying to support these individuals and just seeing. Because a lot of us have seen some things, we just don't want to talk about it for fear of ridicule, things along those lines. Right? I find it fascinating. That's why I've covered the last two stories that I've done with serial killers of what has inspired the real life killers in these movies. And see, Freddy is no exception. But again, they say these shadow figures do this stuff all the time. And if this louse curse is still there, I've heard a lot of traditions say that when you flee your country and flee your own home, bad luck will follow you until you stay in your home and correct what's going on there. I don't know. You guys, tell me what you think, man. Would you dare want to be caught in a nightmare-ish situation such as this? Or have you already been caught in something like this before? If you have, share it with me, man. I'll put it out there. I'll use it for one of my speaking engagements. I'll talk about it in public to a crowd of people, see if they can share the same things that you've gone through. Because I know me personally, I've had those night terrors where you're like, dang, what is that? I think we've all had it. Just, got to be brave enough to admit it. Doesn't mean you're crazy. Things happen. The mind, this universe, is a very strange place, man. And that's what makes it incredibly fascinating and fun sometimes. Scary, but fun at the same time. So, make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Get a copy of my latest book, The Foes of God. It is an outstanding read. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You name it, it's being sold there. Support the brother, support the work, all right? And in closing, again, make sure that you check your homes, the dark closets, the dark recesses of your home. And if you happen to work late at night or into the wee hours of the morning, make sure before you step outside, you're mindful of your surroundings. Check under your car, check underneath your car, check around your car, check inside of your car. Because you never know what's lurking, or you could possibly be sleepwalking and become a nightmare and be made into a story. And this has been L.A.Kendrick with another tale from the vault of Would You Dare. And until next time, you guys be safe and fill in the rest.